Hey guys, tonight I want to tell you about an urban legend that really gives me the chills every time I think about it. Have you ever heard about the mysterious little girl in the London Underground? I'm not kidding, this story is famous among locals and tourists. And it's been floating around for years. Some say it's just a creepy rumor. But there are so many people who've claimed they've seen her with their own eyes. So here's the story. Deep under the streets of London, there's an old train line, a really old one. It's called Old Aldwych Station. The thing is, this station hasn't been used for a long, long time. Officially, they say it's closed for safety reasons, you know. Structural problems. Old tracks, that sort of thing. But if you talk to the locals or the staff who used to work there, they'll tell you something else. They believe there's something way scarier hiding down there. Something that's not so easy to explain with logic. Over the years, tons of strange stories have come out about this place. We are talking about janitors, security guards, even random commuters who accidentally wandered into the wrong area. Many of them describe seeing the same thing, a little girl, maybe 7 years old, wearing this old-fashioned white dress. Her hair is long and dark, and the creepiest part, she never says a word. Just stares. Doesn't blink. Doesn't move. And then she disappears. Imagine this, you're alone in a dark, echoey underground station. It's late at night and there's barely any light. You hear your own footsteps bouncing off the walls. Then suddenly, you feel like you're not alone anymore. You turn around and there she is, a small child. Standing still, staring straight at you. No sound. No expression. Just those dark, empty eyes looking right into your soul. A lot of the people who work in the underground avoid going near that station at night. Even though it's technically shut down. Sometimes they have to go in for inspections or maintenance. And that's when things get really weird. One former janitor, who worked the night shift for over 15 years, said he'll never forget the first time he saw her. He was cleaning the lower tunnels, minding his own business, when he heard what sounded like faint footsteps. Soft, almost like a child's. He figured maybe one of the other staff was messing around. But when he looked back, no one. The footsteps stopped. Then they started again, this time closer. His flashlight caught something in the corner of the tunnel, a little girl, standing perfectly still. She didn't move when he called out. She didn't speak. He said the air suddenly turned ice cold. Like something was sucking all the warmth out of the place. Then, as he blinked, she was gone. Just like that. Another guy, a security guard, shared a similar story. He was checking CCTV feeds from the old station late one night. Out of nowhere, one of the cameras started glitching, static, blurry images. And in the middle of that grainy video feed, there she was again. Same white dress, same long hair, just standing at the end of the platform. The guard swears she looked directly at the camera, even though there was no way she could know it was there. The moment her eyes met the lens, the screen went black. And it's not just the workers who've seen her. There are stories from tourists, too. Some folks accidentally wander into the wrong parts of the underground when they are exploring London. A few years back, a tourist couple reported hearing a soft humming sound coming from one of the abandoned tunnels. Curious, they followed the sound and saw her. The woman described it as one of the scariest moments of her life. The little girl didn't move, didn't speak. Just stared at them with this blank, empty expression. The couple ran as fast as they could, terrified. What's crazy is that so many different people from different backgrounds, at different times, have all described the same thing. A little girl, alone, in a white dress. And she never speaks. The police have even checked the place a few times after reports like this. But they never find anything. No kids, no one playing pranks, nothing. Some say the girl is the spirit of a child who got lost during World War II. When parts of the underground were used as bomb shelters. They say she was separated from her family and never made it out. Whether that's true or not, no one really knows. But the stories keep coming. So yeah, that's the urban legend of the silent child in London Underground. Creepy, right? And honestly, after hearing all these stories, I don't think I'd ever dare to go near Old Aldwych Station at night. But hey, if any of you guys are brave enough to check it out, just be careful. You never know who or what you might run into down there. One of the creepiest encounters with the little girl actually came from a man named Tom. He was a janitor who worked for the London Underground for more than 20 years. Everyone in the staff rooms knew Tom as a no-nonsense guy. Not the type to believe in ghosts or silly stories. He was tough, the kind of person who had seen it all. But one night, something happened that shook him so badly. He quit working the night shift forever. It was a cold, rainy night in late November. Tom had been called in to do some emergency cleaning in the lower tunnels of Old Aldwych Station. The higher-ups wanted everything spotless because some VIP visitors were scheduled to tour the abandoned part of the station for a documentary shoot. Tom wasn't thrilled about working there at night. Nobody really was, but orders were orders. And he needed the extra pay. He arrived around 11 p.m. armed with his mop, a big flashlight, and a portable radio playing some classic rock to keep him company. The place was cold and damp, with a musty smell that stuck to his clothes. As he made his way deeper into the tunnels, the signal on his radio started breaking up, filling the empty halls with crackling static. That should have been his first clue to leave, but Tom shrugged it off. Old buildings had bad reception all the time. For about an hour, everything was normal. Just him, the echo of his footsteps, and the steady swish of his mop across the dirty floor. But then, he heard something strange. Faint footsteps. Light and quick, like those of a small child. He froze, listening. The sound was coming from somewhere behind him. Tom turned around slowly, shining his flashlight down the empty corridor. There was nothing there. Just rows of old brick walls and rusted pipes. The footsteps stopped. Figuring it was probably his imagination, Tom got back to work. But as soon as he started mopping again, the footsteps returned, this time, closer. He spun around once more, heart now thudding in his chest. Still nothing. Must be rats, he thought, though even rats didn't usually sound like that. He started to move faster, wanting to finish the job and get out of there. But the footsteps followed him, matching his pace exactly. Then, something changed. The air grew colder, so cold he could see his breath in the beam of his flashlight. The little hairs on his arms stood straight up. It felt like something was watching him. And that's when he saw her. Standing at the end of the tunnel, half hidden in the shadows, was a little girl. She looked about 7 years old, wearing a plain white dress that seemed oddly clean compared to the filthy surroundings. Her long, dark hair hung over her face. But Tom could see enough to tell she wasn't smiling or laughing. She wasn't crying either. She was a blank, just staring at him with this empty, expressionless face. Tom called out, trying to keep his voice steady. "Hey! Are you lost? Where are your parents?" No reply. The girl didn't move. Didn't even blink. Something about the whole scene made his skin crawl. There were no kids supposed to be down here, not at this hour, not ever. Tom stepped closer, shining his light directly at her, but the beam seemed to flicker and weaken, like the flashlight itself was being drained. The girl's eyes, dark and hollow, locked onto his. For a second, Tom felt a wave of cold dread wash over him, like all the warmth had been sucked out of his body. His mouth went dry. He couldn't move. Couldn't speak. Then, just as suddenly as she appeared, the girl vanished. No sound. No trace. One blink and she was gone. Shaken, Tom grabbed his stuff and ran out of the tunnels, radio crackling uselessly the whole way. When he finally got topside, pale and shivering, he swore to his boss that he would never set foot in Old Aldwych Station again. What's really scary is that Tom wasn't the first person to see her. And he wasn't the last. Over the years, More workers have come forward with similar stories. Each one describing the exact same little girl. In the same white dress. Always silent, always staring. And no one knows why she's there or what she wants. After Tom's terrifying encounter, word started spreading fast among the underground staff. People began whispering about the little girl in the white dress. Some believed it. Some laughed it off, but deep down, everyone felt a little uneasy about working near Old Aldwych Station. Even the bravest security guards started making excuses to avoid that area on the night shift. That's when management decided to do something about it. Officially, they didn't believe in ghosts or urban legends, but unofficially, well, they were getting tired of hearing the same story again and again from different employees. They figured maybe if they installed a couple of new CCTV cameras in the abandoned tunnels, they could finally put all the rumors to rest. Maybe they'd catch some prankster messing around. Or just prove that there was nothing there at all. So, late one evening, a small team of technicians was sent down to set up cameras, high-quality ones with night vision, heat sensors, the whole package. They placed the cameras in key spots along the platform and the tunnels, especially in the places where sightings had been reported the most. Once everything was in place, they left the station and set up a live feed to the control room upstairs. For a few nights, nothing happened. The cameras showed only the usual empty corridors, flickering lights, dust drifting through the air. The technicians watched the feeds with growing boredom. They started to think this was all a big waste of time. But then, on the fourth night, just past 3 in the morning, something strange happened. One of the cameras began to glitch, just one. The feed, which had been perfectly clear, suddenly flickered and filled with static. The tech on duty leaned forward, trying to adjust the settings. Through the grainy static, a faint shape started to appear. It was small, human-shaped, standing at the far end of the tunnel. The tech's heart skipped a beat. He zoomed in slowly. And there she was. The little girl in the white dress, standing perfectly still, facing the wall. At first, the tech thought maybe it was a reflection or a trick of the light. But the more he looked, the more certain he became. This wasn't a trick. The girl was there then and she moved. Without turning her body, her head slowly tilted to the side. Then, inch by inch, she began to turn, until her face was pointed straight at the camera. For a second, just a second, her dark, empty eyes stared directly into the lens. The tech swore he felt a jolt of cold run through him. Like she was looking straight at him, through the screen. And then, the feed went black. No warning, no error message, just total darkness. Panicked, the tech called his supervisor. Together, they tried everything to bring the camera back online. But it was completely dead. When they went back down the next morning to check the equipment, the camera itself had burned out. The wiring was fine. No power surge. No explanation. Word of the footage spread quickly. The staff who had once laughed at the stories weren't laughing anymore. Over the next few weeks, other cameras started glitching in the same way, always around 3 a.m. Always with the same blurry image of the little girl appearing just before the screen went black. Eventually, the management gave up. They stopped trying to record the station. Some even suggested taking the cameras down altogether. It just wasn't worth it anymore. Too many strange things had happened. Too many staff were refusing to work night shifts near that part of the station. To this day, no one knows exactly why the little girl appears on the cameras, or why the equipment always seems to fail when she does. But if you ask the staff who were there back then, they'll tell you she's real. They've seen her. And they'll never forget those eyes staring back at them through the screen. After the camera incidents, Old Aldwych Station became even more of a legend. Most workers refused to go down there at night. And even during the day, people felt uneasy around the place. But like with all urban legends, the stories eventually reached the internet. Soon, ghost hunters, YouTubers, and curious tourists from all over the world wanted to check it out for themselves. One of the most famous stories actually comes from a Japanese tourist named Aiko. She and her boyfriend were traveling through London and had heard about the creepy ghost station. They were into paranormal stuff, so of course, they wanted to see if the stories were true. The thing is, you can't really visit Old Aldwych Station anymore, it's closed off to the public. But Aiko and her boyfriend found a way in. They heard about a small tour that sometimes went through the old parts of the underground, and they managed to join one of the groups. The tour started pretty normal, old architecture, stories about the history of the underground, all the usual stuff. But as they went deeper into the tunnels, the atmosphere started to change. The air grew colder. The lights seemed dimmer. The other tourists in the group got quieter, and even the guide seemed nervous. At one point, the group reached a section where the floor was cracked and uneven. The guide told them to be careful and not wander too far. But Aiko, being curious and a little reckless, drifted away from the group for a moment. Her boyfriend followed behind her, holding his phone up to record the whole thing. That's when they heard it, a soft, faint sound, like humming. A child's voice. It was coming from somewhere deeper in the tunnel. At first, they thought maybe it was part of the tour, like a sound effect to scare people. But the guide hadn't mentioned anything like that. The humming got a little louder. It sounded like an old nursery rhyme, though they couldn't quite recognize the tune. Curious and honestly thinking this would make a great clip for YouTube, Aiko and her boyfriend followed the sound. They walked a little further down the tunnel, away from the group. The humming continued, slow and soft, echoing off the walls. Then they saw her. At the far end of the corridor, in the shadows, stood a small figure. A little girl in a white dress. She wasn't humming anymore. She was just standing there, completely still, facing them. Aiko froze. Her boyfriend did too. The air around them felt icy cold, and the faint hum of the tour group behind them seemed a million miles away. For a moment, no one moved. Then, the girl's head tilted slightly to the side, as if she was curious about them. Her face was pale, with dark eyes that seemed too big for her small frame. She didn't speak. She didn't blink. Just stared. Aiko later said it felt like time itself had stopped. Her chest felt tight, like she couldn't breathe. Her boyfriend, shaking, whispered, "Let's go now." They turned to leave, but as they did, they heard footsteps. Quick, light footsteps, following behind them. Without looking back, they ran. The humming started again, louder this time, almost angry. They reached the main group, out of breath and white as sheets. The guide asked what had happened, but they couldn't even explain it. All they could do was look back down the tunnel, which was now completely empty. Later, when they checked the phone footage, most of it was unusable. The video glitched badly during the moment they saw the girl. Just static and bursts of distorted sound. Only a few frames remained, blurry. But you could just make out a small, pale figure at the far end of the tunnel. Aiko posted their story online, and it quickly went viral. Millions of views. Tons of comments from people claiming they had similar experiences, or saying they had seen the girl too. Since then, even more tourists have tried sneaking into Old Aldwych Station. A few say they saw something. A few say they heard the humming. But no one stays long. And almost no one dares to go alone. So, you're probably wondering, where did this little girl actually come from? Why is she still hanging around the London Underground, haunting those dark tunnels? Well, that's the part of the story that gets really interesting. And really sad. Back during World War II, London was being bombed almost every night. To protect themselves, many Londoners would hide underground in the subway stations, which were converted into bomb shelters. Families packed into the tunnels, hoping to stay safe until the all-clear was sounded. There was one station, Old Aldwych, which wasn't as busy as the others, but it was still used for sheltering people. Among those evacuees were lots of children, scared and confused by the war raging above ground. According to the legend, there was a little girl who got separated from her family during one of the chaotic nights. Maybe she wandered off while her parents were trying to help others. Maybe she got lost in the confusing maze of tunnels. No one knows for sure. What's haunting is that she was never found. When the bombing stopped and people finally left the shelter, this little girl was gone. No one ever saw her again. Since then, people say her spirit has been trapped in the tunnels. Some believe she's trying to find her family. Others think she's scared and alone, reliving those terrifying nights over and over. And that's why she appears so quiet and still, never speaking or moving, just watching silently, like she's waiting for someone to come back. There's also a scary rumor that if you meet her eyes, you'll have nightmares for weeks. People who say they've seen her describe feeling a heavy sadness and coldness that sticks with them long after they leave the station. Some even claim the station itself feels different near where she's seen. The temperature drops, electronic devices fail, and the shadows seem to move on their own. So, what's the truth? Is the silent child just a ghost story, a sad memory from a dark time in history? Or is there really something supernatural lurking in the tunnels beneath London? Maybe it's both. The next time you find yourself walking the London Underground late at night, think twice before exploring those old, forgotten tunnels. Because you never know. Maybe the silent child is watching, waiting for someone to come home. And if you see her, don't speak. Just don't.